Good day to you. I'm John Marino. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, WestchesterTalkRadio.com. Produced by Shark Creative. We are sponsored here at Westchester Talk Radio by people like our good friends at the Indian Point Energy Center in Buchanan, where they are literally helping to keep our lights on in Westchester and throughout our tri-state area. And they will continue to support us here in Westchester and throughout our communities right through April of 2021. And also by Lipolis Electric, where you are never left in the dark. Check out their podcast series called Live Wire, produced by Shark Creative, our parent company here at Westchester Talk Radio. They are found Lipolis Electric on demand, and they run on Westchester Talk Radio. It can be found lipoliselectric.com is their website, and on Westchester Talk Radio on our podcast page as well, too. I'm John Marino. We are joined by Michael Schiliro. Mike Schiliro, the town supervisor in North Castle. North Castle encompasses North White Plains, Armonk, and Banksville. Mike Schiliro, we thank you for being part of Westchester Talk Radio. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, John. Appreciate it.
Great to have you. And as we battle through COVID-19, the coronavirus, the impact we've been dealing with now for a good 6 to 8 weeks around our area, how is the town of North Castle managing through this?
We're doing pretty good. We have two main jobs that are before us as a supervisor and the board, is making sure that we're keeping operations consistent and town services as they need them, despite the governor's order to operate at 50% levels. So we're an essential business, so to speak. We're an essential operation. But we also have to operate at half staff, pretty much. So
how does it work like that? How do you cover everything you have to do?
So we have a town administrator. We have a town administrator model in our town. So Kevin Hay is our town administrator. So we work very closely with him, myself, my executive assistant, Mindy Berard. He worked with all the department heads to then work through what is essential in their department tasks, and then filter through all those things to then get the right staffing levels, and then also determine what their departments do and how much could be done online or through the phone or through any other means that we can use, email. And they realize that a lot of the main services that we provide, and I'm not talking about paving and things like that, I'm talking about the office work. About 90% of it can be done electronically. So we've been working since before we had to get to 50%. So we've had our town staff, we closed our buildings before we had to close them, and we've been transitioning all of our staff even before we had to, and getting our customers, I call them customers, our residents, adapted to getting the same things they need to get done in our offices via email, internet, phone call, all those other means. And we don't have the foot traffic in town hall and other buildings.
Now, as things begin to get back to normal, we hope sooner rather than later, will this lead to a change in how you do things, how you run town government? You talk about being able to do 90% with 50% right now. That may not always be possible yet. Might there be a basic change as to how things operate when things start to come back?
Well, in any situation like this, you always evaluate and reevaluate how you're doing your job, how better. We're constantly in the process of doing more with less. How can we improve upon how we provide service to the residents? But what I'm talking about now, limits us to office work. The majority of our employees is public safety, highway, parks, water and sewer. That's all external. So yes, this might lead us to different efficiencies that we may be able to uncover internally. We were always prepared for certain employees to have to work remotely, so that was good. But in any crisis or any situation like this, you always go through a sort of a post-mortem to see, okay, where could we actually improve the level of service? Where could we actually be more efficient as well economically? So that will be a natural byproduct of this. I'm not saying that staff may be reduced or anything like that. It's just, how do we better accomplish what we need to accomplish for the residents of the town? Again, I call them the customers. and in the best manner we can. Public safety is a whole different model. They're isolated in one part of town hall. They actually have had positive cases in their department, and they completely retooled how they do shift changes, which is all external, how they conduct themselves in the station house. Very few officers are in the station house, and they've done an excellent job, as of our volunteer fire departments in all three hamlets, to deal with this crisis, at the same time providing the level of service that we need.
How hard has COVID-19, how hard has this pandemic hit your town of North Castle?
So I track the numbers. I keep my own spreadsheet tracking our town versus every municipality in the county. And one of the things that I track for myself, I created a formula to see what percentage of our town is infected as a positive, and what percentage of each town or city or village in the county, their population is a percentage that's positive. So the average right now in Westchester County is about 1.56 of your population is a positive, and we're always running well below that. So we're running right now at about 1.06. The high end of that spectrum is about just over 3% of the population, Yonkers being the leader in that. Excuse me. So what I think is a combination of, we're 26 square miles. North White Plains is much more concentrated. Armonk a little bit less. Banksville much less concentrated. And then I'm constantly sending communications to the townspeople about how to model good behavior, making sure they're wearing masks, making sure they're not going out if they don't need to, all those things. So I think a combination of, we're a little more spread out, and people are paying attention and modeling good behavior has resulted in our number of positives being well below the county average.
Now, the county executive, Georgia Latimer, has guidelines for the entire county to follow in response to COVID-19. Yet, as you point out, Armonk, Banksville, North White Plains, North Castletown is a bit less populated than a New Rochelle, a Yonkers, a White Plains, Mount Vernon, Peekskill. Does this change how you in town might have to respond to be able to work best with what the county executive would like you to do? Might you have to change things up just a bit?
No, because the population, if you've got a really large population, it may mean that you've got some areas that are concentrated. Like North White Plains is much more concentrated than Armonk and Banksville. And the incident rate in North White Plains is a little greater because it's a little bit more concentrated. Beautiful neighborhoods there, but not as spread out as, there's not 4 acre zoning, let's say, in Banksville. But we still have a lower percentage per capita than the average, and certainly some on the high end. And what we're doing is no different than any other town, in that following the George Latimer's guidelines, following the guidelines from New York State, the governor, and making sure that we communicate those and then implement them where we can implement them, meaning for the town. But the big part of my job, other than making sure that we're running town operations, is also making sure that I am and we are communicating to the residents all those changes, what they need to do, and I've been communicating very strongly about modeling good behavior, which means don't go out if you don't need to, self-isolate, social distance if you do go out, mask up. So I put on big emails, mask up. You go out, wear a mask. Now, the governor's order doesn't require you to wear a mask unless you're in a situation where there can't be social distancing. My interpretation of that is you can never control somebody else that is not distancing, thus always wear a mask. Always wear a mask. And that's what we've communicated to our residents. And repetitive, constantly reminding people. And for the most part, if you drive through North White Plains and Banksville and Armonk, you will see people. It's never perfect. And we've had to take action when we saw it needed to be done. As an example, we kept our parks open. They're still open. But we had to take down our basketball hoops because we saw people that shouldn't be doing what they shouldn't be doing. We locked our tennis courts because people weren't being careful enough. So where we saw we had to adjust, we did. At the same time, tried to let people be outside. So hiking trails are open. Our parks are open if you want to walk around, but you have to social distance. And we can't control every single person, but we're doing the best we can to communicate what's important. And for the most part, I believe people are paying attention, as evidenced by that lower than average percentage of our populace. That has a positive.
There's a rumor going around that if you walk by the Schiliro front lawn in town and you don't have a mask on, there's no way you should walk past the Schiliro household without a mask on.
Well, sort of. Not yet that you can take a mask, but I've been collecting masks at the urging of a doctor who lives in town, who has a practice and also works at a White Plains hospital. And she'd asked if we can collect masks. So I started that effort, and then she asked if you could ask people if they don't have brand new masks, if they could make masks. Because what the frontline workers do is they cover their masks with the fabric mask, and that preserves their mask, the medical mask, and they have to preserve that. So I sent out an email collecting masks and asking people to make masks, and I keep 2 bins on my front lawn, and for collection, not for people to take them yet. And I was floored with the response. I must have collected probably almost 1,000 homemade masks that people are at their house with their sewing machines in all different designs and colors. I don't have any here with me. I wish I did. I could have showed you. But I posted them I've taken pictures and posted them on my website. I could pull a picture on my phone and show you, but incredible resiliency in people and spirit and patriotism where people are just making masks and dropping them off on my front lawn. And then this doctor, never met her. Probably about 10 times. She comes at whatever hour she can, could be the middle of the night. She empties the bin. She delivers them to frontline workers, and they're able to protect themselves further. And one of the messages I've sent to our residents as well is to understand when you're thinking about, you might lose sight of the fact of how urgent this is, this crisis, and letting your guard down about a mask or gloves. People are dying. Frontline workers are dying. They're putting their lives on the line for patients, people like us, and they need to keep that in top of mind. If I did a careless action, someone could die, a frontline worker, or I can infect somebody who could die. You have to think in that mindset. And one of the small problems we've been having in town, and it's been throughout, is people littering gloves and masks. That I take extremely seriously, and will have no mercy on anybody that's caught doing that. They will be fined the maximum, and jail time is an option. That's intentionally, potentially injuring people that are already, especially on the front lines, helping us deal with the patients. The last thing you want to do is give them more patience. And that thing, for people to get me angry, gets me angry. That's just when people literally put a bag in their car and put all that stuff in the bag and then drive home and put it in the garbage. I shouldn't have to do that, but people are being very careless when it comes to that and selfish. But again, for the most part, the large majority of people in our town are being very, very careful.
Mike Schiliro is the town supervisor in the town of North Castle, encompassing Armonk, North White Plains, and Banksville here in Westchester. I'm John Marino. We are Westchester Talk Radio. Behind Mike is the official town of North Castle big plaque and logo that he's got behind us here, what they call the branding nowadays, the North Castle town branding plaque behind him there. And as we talk about, as Mike talks about frontline workers, we also want to mention the frontline workers over at White Plains Hospital who are helping us make it through the pandemic, through COVID-19. White Plains Hospital, one of our sponsors here at Westchester Talk Radio. We produce their show as well on WestchesterTalkRadio.com. They have a very special show that they do as well. Hightower Westchester, where they're always willing to help, and they have the right solution for you always at Hightower Westchester. And just check them out, Hightower Westchester. Look for their what they do in their podcast series on demand. It is called teams.hightoweradvisors.com/team/Westchester/media room, and go to WestchesterTalkRadio.com for more about High Tower Advisors, and by our good friends over at Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon. And we thank you, one and all. Mike Schiliro, the town supervisor in North Castle. Michael, when hopefully we get the word to go back to a semblance of a normal life, what would you like to do, get done, get accomplished in the town of North Castle? Matter of fact, what might be getting accomplished right now, COVID-19 or not?
So the big driver is economics and business. And what I've also communicated to townspeople is, in this crisis, where you can, if you can afford it, support our local food establishments, our restaurants and delis and things. Do it safely, obviously. So I want you to self-isolate. But if you do go out, do it safely. As an example, one of the restaurants that we go to, you order, you pay over the phone, you pull up, you open your trunk, they put the bag in your trunk, you drive away, and that's it. No contact, no nothing. So we're encouraging people now to patronize those food establishments in all three hamlets as best you can if you can afford it. I'm also asking people to buy gift certificates. That way, those businesses' cash flow is very important, and they don't have a lot of it. And actually, if you can help it, not use certificates. So don't redeem a gift certificate in these times unless you absolutely have to, and some people do. And all the alternative is to buy a gift certificate. So we're trying to keep those businesses going as best they can. And at the same time, keeping in mind the thought of, when we can have a reentry into orbit again in normal life, what is that going to look like, and provide whatever help or resource to these establishments, headquarters. They were well ahead of this. They shut down their offices before you had to. They've been working remotely. So some of those big companies have a very good handle on it. I don't think there's anything that we can do to help them, but they may ask. But the other mom and pop type businesses, we have to make sure that everything is communicated clearly if there's changes from the governor, so everybody understands. Communicating with the Chamber of Commerce, communicating directly through our business owners to our residents so they understand what those impacts are, and then helping them get back afloat, re-entering, like I said, sort of re-entering the orbit of what is that going to look like. None of us know what that's going to look like now.
This is going to take time, obviously. It's not going to be
open at a restaurant. If so, are their seats going to be completely separated, or can you only go out with people that are in your family that you're living with? So whatever that's supposed to look like, to me, the main aid we provide is helping commerce, helping facilitate whatever commerce is going to be allowed, and helping communicate that and guiding businesses, and then also communicating it to the residents so they know how to react in this current time of this reentry. It's going to be tricky because we don't know the future. We don't know if there'll be another virus outbreak in the fall, and until you have immunization and a treatment, it's a very dicey situation. So it's fluid, and we're going to continue to do what we've been doing, but hopefully it'll get a little bit clearer, and then we'll be able to re-enter. One thing I just thought of that we're dealing with as a town is we have a town pool and town camp for kids. Right now, we're telling residents, we don't know. We're going to be prepared to open if we're allowed. Right now, we can't tell you whether we can or not. And then, no, we know but we'll be prepared for it when it does. When we get to that point.
Let's say you get the okay July 1st. How soon might you be able to kick things up in after pools, et cetera, anything outdoors in the town?
Yeah, we're going to have work done. Like, let's use our pool, for example. We're targeting a July 1st type of opening, potentially. We've got to do some infrastructure work on the facility anyway. We rent it. We don't own the facility, but we lease it. But we'll be prepared. But then there's other things to consider. You have to staff. So you get Life Camp is the same thing. We could set up the infrastructure, but can we get counselors that are willing to work? The parents want to send their kids to a camp during this. So those are all the variables you have to put in play. We'll be able to operate as quick as we possibly can because we're preparing for that. But some of the variable items we can't control, mainly being staff. That's a little bit of a tricky one.
Last couple of minutes with North Castletown Supervisor Mike Schiliro. Mike, a couple of months ago, I guess it was earlier this year, maybe late last year, verdict came down in the North Castle case with the state of Connecticut. That portion of 684 that passes through Greenwich, Connecticut, kind of cuts through down to North Castle as well. The state of Connecticut wanted to place toll booths in that 1 mile stretch of Connecticut that is kind of contained, surrounded by Westchester. That will not come to pass.
Yes, that's good news. Good news for our town. But we spent a lot of time lobbying in the entire Connecticut legislature. I think there was 180 members, let's say, Assembly and Senate. Communicated to everyone directly. My office, I didn't go out, but we testified in Hartford. Somebody from my office, when they had a hearing on this topic, communicated directly with the lieutenant governor and the governor. And what we were appealing to them, other than to us, the sort of ill-advised putting a toll on that section of 684, I did not pass judgment on any other of the tolls in the entire state of Connecticut. I thought they would try to do their best to come up with creative ideas of how to raise revenue to improve the quality of life. I get that. This one just didn't make any sense because you can't get on or off in Connecticut. You just drive through Connecticut, and most people who know Westchester have driven on 684 where they see a little sign that says now entering Greenwich, and then within 60 seconds you're out of Greenwich. It just didn't make any sense, and the real hardship was going to be on our North Castle, our town. I drove all the reroutes, all the bypasses myself. You can get off at 684 on exit 2 and get back on exit 3, and it's an extra 3 minutes. You can get off on 287 and take 22 up through North White Plains, which would be a real hardship on North White Plains residents. That would take an extra 2 or 3 minutes. The things that we were hearing from the state of Connecticut was those bypasses were 40 minutes. Other misinformation that was being circulated through Connecticut. I was very passionate about making sure that this did not affect the quality of life of people in North White Plains and Armonk, and some of Banksville, but all these additional truck traffic, which our roads certainly don't need, and especially on the state roads that are in town, and then especially going through North White Plains. If you were coming west to east on 287, all you do is get off 22, drive exit 6, drive up, and it's pretty much almost at the same time doing it that way. And it's just going to be the traffic is already a mess there because the dam is closed right after 9/11, and you don't have that road there anymore. So fortunately, after a lot of the lobbying and the support by George Latimer and his office and our state representatives, the governor finally came to the conclusion that he was going to pull the plug on this whole toll program for the entire state, including 684. So we were very grateful, and we felt that our lobbying did a lot to make them aware of, and the state legislature aware of, how unique we were. And even if they passed it, we were still lobbying for at least take us out of it. Take this toll that theoretically is in New York out of it, and you can remain doing whatever you want to do in the rest of Connecticut.
I do want to congratulate you on that, by the way, on that victory there.
That was
no doubt about that. That would have been, like you said, a real hardship that would have been on the people of North Castle, especially those who live along or need Route 22 to travel on, even 3 o'clock in the morning. I remember you said in, I guess, Journal News, a story that 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, Route 22 would be totally backed up if this happened.
It could be, yeah. And just a great team effort on our side. My executive assistant, Mindy Berard, was kind of flipped gears and was like a legislative director, liaising with all the representatives in Connecticut.
Mindy did a lot of work on this. I know about that.
Yeah. She testified in Hartford. So great team effort on everybody on our part. working with all of our partners and other levels of government, and we got the result that we were looking for. And at least for now, we're very happy about it. So that's a good thing.
Mike Schiliro, Town Supervisor in North Castle, encompassing Armonk and North White Plains and Banksville. Mike, thank you. Want to have you back again real soon on Westchester Talk Radio.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to talk to you again. We've spoken in
Stay
venues past. Great to be back with you again, Mike. Much appreciated. Thank you. Westchester Talk Radio, special thanks to our sponsors, and they are people like, for example, who make what we do possible, produced by Sharka Creative here at Westchester Talk Radio. Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, they are keeping our lights on through April of 2021 in Westchester and throughout our surrounding area. We thank you, our good friends at Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center up in Buchanan, Lapolis Electric in Pelham in Westchester, and Pauling, Dutchess County, and they're down in Manhattan too. Hightower, Westchester, they always find the right solution just for you. Check them out. WestchesterTalkRadio.com has more about Hightower, Westchester. Our friends on the front line, and we thank you for all you've done, especially our good friends over at White Plains Hospital too. White Plains Hospital, where we produce their podcast series called Health of Talk, which you can find on the White Plains Hospital website and on WestchesterTalkRadio.com and on demand on the Westchester Talk Radio podcast page as well too. And our good friends over in Mount Vernon over at Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitative Services. I'm John Marino. We are Westchester Talk Radio, WestchesterTalkRadio.com. All one word, produced by Sharka Creative.